We're going to be talking about today on Give Me a Break, the Venezuela invasion, if it's the Don Roe doctrine. We kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, but there's been some significant developments since then. So let's dive into it. I'll start with you, Powder Dusty. It's your first time here. Tell us what you think, who you are, and the opening thoughts.
Thank you. My name is Taylor. My channel is The Powder Dusty. Well, I was hoping to go last. I'm coming into this a little bit cold. I mean, I think... Yeah. What do I think? I think that we need to stop blowing up boats. I think that we need to stop the war on drugs because I think it's an excuse for us to... It's an excuse for whatever they're really trying to do. I don't believe that it's actually an attempt to fight drugs. But that's for Tyler. No, but that's really all I got so far. We'll see when we get into it.
All right, Mr. Non-Smoker.
Hey, twitch.tv/non_smoker. So yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see how anybody would advocate for us to like intervene in Venezuela. Like the only way it could make sense is if, you know, like once again, the American politics, this is like a purely partisan thing. The only way you could defend this is if you would defend Trump doing anything, you know, and I don't see anyone making a compelling case for why we can do this without treading into ridiculous propaganda territories. So I'm kind of interested to see what other people have to say because I don't know. I know where anybody with common sense stands on the issue already.
All right. Thank you so much. Grid.
Oh, me? Cool. Got it. All right. So I'm Grid One Motorsports. I am an unreasonable man in most places. Otherwise, you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find. So I like this speech. I will give you the reasoning. Historical precedent says that we can blow boats out of the water. We did it back in the 1920s with the rum runners. We've done it many other times throughout history. It's what we do. We don't want it coming in the country. If you keep sending shit in the country, we're going to blow your boats out of the water. It's the way it is. So we have historical precedents. There is some discussion about whether or not it's legal. We'll get into that here shortly. I'm sure. I personally think we're in kind of a gray area. I would like it to be a lot more clear, but as of right now, we have historical precedents to blow boats out of the water, and let's blow some boats out of the water. It's an easy thing for Venezuela to fix. Don't send fucking boats full of drugs over, and we won't blow them up. It's a real simple thing. Super easy. Simple, easy to remember. That's me. Anyway, gotcha.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Dylan Burns. Also, guys, if you don't know Dylan Burns, we just reviewed his newest documentary on Tuesday, and I really enjoyed it, by the way. It's got a lot of good on-the-ground footage and kind of shows the civilian life and then the action with the soldiers, and it's real good. I really enjoyed it, Dylan. You do good work. I hope you keep it up. But yeah, what are your opening thoughts here? And I'm going to post the link in chat, guys, so check it out. But go ahead.
Thank you, my fellow long-haired brother. I do appreciate that. My opening thoughts. So I don't think this has much to do with drugs. I do think that Trump doesn't like drugs. I think most people don't like the importation of drugs. But Venezuela is not a drug-producing hotspot. It is a spot where, you know, drugs are smuggled above the northern coastline of Venezuela to a lot of Caribbean islands. And there are a lot of other points from those Caribbean islands from there. Then they can enter the United States and the southern United States. You know, Miami, that area and such. But to make this about drug enforcement, I think kind of obfuscates from the bigger task I think Trump has at hand, which is trying to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. Marco Rubio, who is his national security advisor and his secretary of state, which has not been done since Henry Kissinger, is a long-standing cheerleader for the Behead Maduro fan club in Washington, D.C. He has been an advocate against it for the longest time possible. And the majority of the Republican Party, irrespective of any recent, you know, anti-interventionist bona fides that some might claim to, they are interventionists when it comes to Latin America, particularly socialist Latin American countries in American history. And it's not different today. It's still the case. And so I think this mainly has to do with removing Maduro from power. And the conversations that Donald Trump is having with Maduro, as has been recently reported by press, seem to be around that. And so I think the question, we can have a conversations about drug enforcement. We can have a conversation about bringing stuff into the country. But I think the bigger conversation is probably whether or not the United States has a right to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, and whether or not it's in America's interest to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, because that seems to be the main focus of the operation. You don't need 15,000 soldiers to do this drug enforcement operation. You don't need the General Ford. You don't need the largest aircraft carrier in America's arsenal to do that. There's an other pressure-based diplomatic effort going on here, and I hope we can talk about that.
All right, yeah, I hope we get into it. Mr. Castle.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Gibbs, my name is Castle. You can find me on Castle Guard YT on Twitter and YouTube. I kind of lean center left in most things with nuance, and I think this is a topic with a lot of nuance to it. I'm all for American exceptionalism and American might and that show of force to make sure that we can spread our Western values across the world. But I also think at the same time, you have to do it the right way. And for example, in Ukraine, I would love for us to help Ukraine more. And in Venezuela, I think that we're overstepping ourselves a little bit. And so in this case, I understand the need and the kind of context behind why we want to take Maduro out and why he's bad for Venezuela. But at the same time, if you look at what that would accomplish and what we've done in the past with taking leadership out of countries and the power vacuum and problems it creates thereafter once we leave, that's another problem you have to think of outside of just taking out a leader of a country like Venezuela. So, you know, when you compare it to a country like Ukraine that's being attacked, I think helping them is good. When we start attacking these boats to try to kind of show force and to show Maduro who's in charge, I don't know if that's helping the Venezuelan people. I don't know if the Venezuelan people have improved their lives since we've started doing this. And so I think, like Dylan was saying, I think we should take a more diplomatic approach at first. I think Marco Rubio mentioned this as well, is that there is a way to talk through this before we start trying to invade or bomb them on land, which I think, you know, at this point we're getting closer and closer to war, which I think was one of Trump's main things he was running on not to do. So I think the further we can stay away from an actual war, especially land war with Venezuela, the better. And I think we should look at this from a diplomatic lens as far as we can go before we take any military action.
All right, thank you so much, Anna. Last but not least, Tyler.
All right, I never get to go last because I have an A name, so I get to sound like a genius here because I've heard all your thoughts and I get to like rebut them. So interventionism is based and globalism is the future. That's going to be where we start today. This is just another one of Russia and China's allies, sanction and tariff dodging trade partners that we have isolated off of the world stage. Just like Syria, just like Iran, just like Iran's 6 proxies, this is now another card being removed from the table that is allies with our actual geopolitical rivals, Russia and really China. Russia, who didn't even send troops to help out Syria, their proxy, is now sending troops to Venezuela. And what are our consequences for this? We hit Iran. We attacked them. We dropped bombs on them, the United States, and it's been 5 months, and they haven't done anything back while their nuclear facilities still sit in rubble. Non-smoker, 5 months. So we were. We put on a few.
We'll push you off the wagon.
Yeah, so we know Venezuela has people that are tied in with the cartel in their government. We know the cartel of the Sun mostly is their government, and they're working with Trindagua. They have high up members of the government, high up members in the police, high up members in the military, all working with cartels. This nation we know is jailing its political rivals for crime or for no crimes with no trials. They're killing the political opposition, killing protesters in the street in ways that if Donald Trump did it, I'd actually be on the side of the leftists against ICE. Actually rigging elections to the point where now Maduro's been elected twice and there's no opposition that has a fair chance because of what he's doing in the country. This is just one more step toward U.S. winning the Cold War, the strategic battle of world dominance. U.S. hegemony has brought us the living standards we enjoy today and the most peaceful world we've ever had. We need to support it and back it. Diplomacy and sanctioning have been going on since Chavez, before Maduro even took office. We've sanctioned them. We've tried to make deals with them. We've tried to do all sorts of shit with them. They finally, after being sued in court 20 years later, paid some of the settlement money for all of the oil companies they just held at gunpoint and forced out that were all U.S. owned. That just happened a few years ago after a decade. The war on drugs as well. Imagine if we looked at other wars like this. Well, the war on drugs hasn't been successful. Neither have laws against murder. So, well, you know, they haven't stopped murder, so let's just make murder legal. That's just the reverse nirvana fallacy, and I expect a puddle drooling in the lap of a person that thinks like that. So come at me, entire panel. I think I insulted all of you.
Not me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
You're
right,
good.
yeah.
You didn't insult me, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I gotta.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this is the amount of copium in this room right now is awesome. First of all, literally the entire country is drug smugglers. Who said they weren't drug smugglers? Who said they weren't in the business of making drugs? They literally have entire villages that are enslaved to grow and process.
It's decentralized
of drugs.
Sort of like all the weapons.
drug
of mass
networks in
destruction,
Venezuela are
right?
decentralized.
Well,
Oh, they're
my God,
libertarian.
they're decentralized. Who cares? They're fucking cartels.
It matters
like
when that's your reason
narco-terrorists.
for going in to
Literally-
decapitate the regime. It means it won't stop the drug dealing.
Well, I like.
Well, hold on. Do you know that we have right now? Do you know that right now, since 2020, we've had actually, wait, am I wrong on that? Yeah, 2020, we've had a $15 million bounty on Maduro's head. He won't leave his country because if he does, he's dead. Somebody's going to collect the $15 million. Oh, wait, there's more. It was increased in 2025 to $25 million under the Biden administration. The bounty was raised to $25 million. And then once Trump was in office, it was increased to, in July or August, just a month or so ago, it was increased to $50 million for that dude's head. $50 million. The United States government wants Maduro so badly, they will pay you $50 million to go bring me Maduro's head. You get $50 million bucks.
Not working.
I don't understand what you're trying to say.
I want to
that's
touch on something though.
Because you're claiming that they're not narco terrorists, and we
Dude,
obviously
Trump
are going to
just
believe
pardoned a
that
fucking
it's bad
drug
enough.
lord. Juan Orlando
Yes, they're
Hernandez.
drug lords.
Just
We killed
pardoned
them.
him. Just pardoned him.
That's kind of off topic.
I did want to.
How is it off topic?
Hold
Gibbs is
on.
trying to-
Let me reframe this real quick. Yeah. Let me just get his reorganization real quick. I want to touch on two things here. First, I think Dusty said something earlier. He's talking about how the war on drugs hasn't worked, right? And like right now, you know what price hasn't changed in the last 40 years? Cocaine prices, the same prices they've been since the 80s. And guess what? It's the highest purity it's ever been, right? So if that tells me the war on drugs has failed miserably, right? Whenever the only thing that's hadn't had to deal with inflation is cocaine prices, and the purity's gone up. So okay, clearly it's failed. So I definitely think it's more along the lines of there's some other agenda, which is remove Maduro, right? And I guess to my people like Dylan Castle, who are like pretty pro-Ukraine, I'm a pro-Ukraine Republican. I would think that this is exactly what Tyler said, where it's like, hey, we're taking out another domino that's tangentially related to Russia, and that's going to isolate it. And an aggressive response here means we'll probably more likely have an aggressive response against Russia long term. Do you two not see it that way?
So the way I see it compared to Ukraine is this: the Ukrainians themselves are being attacked and they're being maimed and killed. And I just think that when you start to look at
This is like
another country,
ally. So we would be taking out an ally, Russia, which hurts Russia, so which would help Ukraine. Like
A trade partner too, yeah.
sure, but we're not even really helping Ukraine anymore. At least this administration isn't doing enough to help Ukraine. So I don't even know if we would be helping Ukraine if we had Russia go into sending more resources to to Venezuela at this point. We're making a deal, or at least this administration is looking to make a deal with Russia for Ukraine to give up a lot of their land. So I don't know if that's gonna help Ukraine at all. I think right now that the more that we spend money and time in Venezuela, it's not going to help as much as we think. Like, think about the outcome right now, that if we went in and we took out Maduro, we know that there are always ulterior motives with the United States and why they look to take out leaders. And it's no coincidence that Venezuela holds a ton of oil underneath their land there. So I think this is more of the administration looking to extract resources from Venezuela than actually caring about whatever drug smuggling. I mean, think about the boats that were blowing up. They're not coming to the United States. We know they're not going to, Florida or Texas or wherever. They're going to other countries where then you can make the assumption that from those places they would send drugs to the U.S., but they're not even within our waters. So why do we have the responsibility to take them out if they're in international waters? I don't know, Antigua, Barbados, Cuba, wherever it is, but they can't even reach the United States, so they're not even coming to our shores. So how would you say that we have the responsibility to bomb them?
For Venezuela, I think, then.
Is that your position, Dylan? Do you think that too? Like, kind of, do you echo what Cass was saying?
Well, there's a few things I wanted to respond to quickly. At the start, I was the one who said, like, I don't think this has anything to do with drugs. I don't think Venezuela is like a major drug producer. My point wasn't to say that Venezuela doesn't produce drugs, and my point was not to say that, and this is, I think, more important, Venezuela isn't a major passageway, you could say, like a conveyor belt for drugs to make its way to the Caribbean, and then from there go to other markets, be it the United States, be it in the Caribbean itself, be it elsewhere. What I will say is that I don't think Venezuela, in comparison to Colombia, in comparison to the man that Donald Trump just pardoned, in comparison to any other number of like South American leaders or governments, is particularly egregiously engaged in the crime of drug smuggling. And I especially don't think that a quick strike plan is going to eliminate that drug production, because as Non-Smoker said earlier, drug production in the country is heavily decentralized. You take out the leadership, what you're going to do is you're going to allow the decentralized drug market to be able to come up to whatever the new leadership is going to be it capitalist, be it socialist, be it just a random thug. They're going to come to them and say, we'll make a deal with you. And that same deal, I think, will continue. So the goal would hopefully be from the United States is that you replace Maduro with somebody who will crusade in a war against drugs. But that requires a lot more than just blowing something up. That requires us taking the investment to actually go in there and make sure stuff stays stable, that there's elections, that things go the way that we want them to go. Like, there's so much that you have to invest in past that point than the idea of just like a few bombing runs, which is being floated around right now. Even if you diplomatically negotiate Maduro out of there.
And if I can
their drug production is a domestic issue anyways. It's not our issue. I don't see why we would be blowing up random boats and saying, oh, we think that they're drug boats, when we were spent decades guarding poppy fields in the Middle East.
And as to answer Gibbs' question, care about drugs.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take the stage too much, but Gibbs asked me a question on the it was on Ukraine and whether this like knocks over another domino. It would be, there is a truth to the idea that if the United States is not giving Ukraine the physical tools to apply pressure on the battlefield, how much does tipping over another domino really do for Ukraine? Well, there is still some room for assistance. Number one, as has been brought up before, Venezuela has a lot of oil. Venezuela has a lot of energy. And if you are able to open that up to markets that previously it was not open up to, that were previously dependent upon Russian fuel and Russian energy, then you can make energy cheaper for those countries. You can make it so that they have more providers, and you can make it so that their energy markets are more flexible and are more strong in the aftermath of cutting off Russian fuel. You also get rid of a Russian ally in South America, further isolating Cuba, if that is of the interest of other people. But I think like most directly tied to Ukraine, it would probably be the fuel. It would probably be that being opened up. But that's going to take years of investment and reform. And it's, I mean, like the Venezuelan energy system is like, it used to be a a kind of a wonder of South America. It's what helped fund all of their social programs. Now it's garbage. It's derelict. It's not doing fantastic. And so it's not like we go to Venezuela and we turn off the socialism switch and then the fuel explodes and then we all have access to that. It's going to take years. And so even though it could help Europe right now, it's probably going to help Europe even if Maduro collapsed 3, 4, or 5 years down the line.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's very capital intensive to try to modernize Venezuela's oil production. So, like, the assumption that, okay, well, we decapitate the regime and, like, let's just make all the assumptions, right? Like, anyone loyal to Maduro is immediately either, I don't know, like extradited or killed or whatever, jailed. They're all done away with. There's a lot of problems within Venezuela domestically that need to be resolved, which is going to involve like a prolonged, investment of time, money, resources, troops, etc. from the United States. I mean, you can make the very obvious argument that all of those resources could be best utilized elsewhere. But there's also something to the idea that, like, maybe you wouldn't get a maximal return on investment even doing all of that stuff in the best case scenario, because as Dylan said, in the time it would take to modernize Venezuela's oil production, I think the benefits, again, would be years and years down the line. So, look, I actually kind of want to shift this a little bit and try to point out that I think this is more of an economic war against China. China is the primary importer of Venezuela's oil. So if the idea is, well, we want to, destroy Venezuela's ability to export oil, and then whatever happens to the Venezuelan oil for the time being, who knows, who cares, let them rebuild it under some sort of like happy, I don't know, think tanky regime that we like, and maybe they'll figure it out years down the line, but we just want to cut off their oil supply to our adversaries. It's really going to hurt China, not as much as it's going to hurt Russia, who is a minor importer of Venezuelan oil. I also think another wrinkle to this that a lot of people don't talk about is the rare earths.
I would agree with the analysis that as far as trying to hurt Ukraine, I don't think that, or hurt Russia in the Ukraine war, I think it does very minimal to nothing for that to happen. I don't think Russia gets basically any oil. We actually still get oil from Venezuela through Chevron. Chevron has an agreement with Venezuela, and we still buy. I don't know how much. I could grok it up really quick, but I'm sure you can too. As much as we just don't get as much as we were. I don't know how much the equipment issues are right now in Venezuela. Obviously, it's been 20 odd years, that it's been, kind of jacked up. And of course, obviously, there's a serious issue with, knowledgeable people to run it. I don't know that they even have any, honestly, but, it's a good pivot, but I don't know that it doesn't hurt us because we can still buy oil from through Chevron. We're not paying any more for it than we would anywhere else. And the Chinese do get the bulk of Venezuela's exports of oil.
Hold on. No, I'm going to go with you, Tyler, but like
that doesn't hurt Russia.
Touch on something at the end, which is the rare earth minerals, and I think that, and he brought up China, and I wanted to address that. I think this is maybe won't directly affect like Russia tomorrow if we took out Venezuela. I think like Dylan kind of went pretty in depth on why it's going to be a long-term investment it would be in that case. But I think that it is like a taking out of a member of this like alliance that's kind of like a raid against the U.S., right? That's kind of like with that, what you call it, BRICS or whatever y'all want to call it, the new axis of evil. It seems like they're like aligned or tangentially aligned, and it seems it's like a step in that, whether it's China or whether it's Russia, they're both in cahoots. It seems like eliminating, and the rare earth minerals I think are becoming I don't think are talked about enough. I think that non-smoker, I don't know if that's for sure where you were going with that, but I think that's a big factor. But I'll let Do you have anything else you wanted to add on that? Then I'm going to go to Tyler.
I mean, just to finish quickly, I mean, that was, I thought, part of the calculus initially was like, okay, well, again, decapitate Maduro, right? And then just reap the rewards, take all of the natural resources you can. I mean, that's what a lot of you guys always advocate for with the pro-interventionism. And
literally nobody in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm referencing to prior debates, but
I would say
at least in the case of Venezuela, a lot of the rare earths are controlled by, I don't know if it's right to say ironically or not, but also criminal gangs. Most of the rare earths are mined not by the regime, but like these rogue groups who mine illegally. They have no regard for the environment, and they end up kind of through these sort of clandestine networks shipping the rare earths onto the world market, where they sort of cycle all over the place. And I only bring that up to say that the notion that crushing Maduro would mean just getting all of Venezuela's riches, including the rare earths. It's really not that simple. The rare earths production is not even controlled by Maduro. It's controlled by all these renegade little groups. And, you know, any removal, like, it's very similar in this way to Syria. Any remover of like a dictator or a dictatorial figure inevitably leads to this struggle of factions, each with their own interest. And it's then our duty in a way to clean that up if we intend to reap any sort of material rewards from this, which I think that the people who are planning all of this are aware. Do you think that's the
goal? Because this seems like a pivot.
No, I don't.
It seems like a pivot. Do you think it's the United States' goal to clean up Venezuela because we somehow think we're going to get something out of it? Or do you think that it's just as simple as we're tired of 100,000, 200,000 deaths a year from fentanyl that comes?
It's not about fentanyl either. It's not about fentanyl either. Because it's not going to make a significant dent, first of all, in fentanyl at all. I mean, Venezuela primarily is a drug route for cocaine, but in addition to that, there's massive drug dealing networks all over Latin America, which are again decentralized networks. So removing this regime is not going to stop any of that. Hold
on. See, again, you keep saying that we're removing the regime. We're blowing up literal boats filled with drugs. That means there are less drugs making it through. So,
blowing up a few random people in boats is not making a significant dent.
If we wanted Maduro gone, we could literally do it in 7 hours.
Like, are you sure?
I mean, we are the United States.
I don't think so. We tried it in 2020. We tried it in 2020.
What's the bounty on his head?
Just to like give credence to something that's unrelated, but I think related at the same time. I don't know how to rephrase this. My brain's working slow today. But it is Rwanda deal happened today, right? And that is basically because of the rare earth minerals, right? You know, that's why he wanted to do it. That's why he backed it. And he took it against the Rwanda side, against the Congo, basically, who's a Russian ally. And Rwanda's taking over France's contracts and whatever. And so I almost see kind of what Tyler is bringing up. And I think it's a point to it's what's not spoken brought up with the rare minerals, where it's like it could be a political realignment thing of taking out things. Do you not see that, Jared? Are you sure? It's like, why?
If we were going after him to take him out, I would 100%. If we were landing troops and rolling up the shores with tanks, or we were sending in SEAL team whatever and blowing his head off in the middle of the night, if any of those things were happening, I would lend credence to what you're saying. But we're not doing that. We're simply blowing boats out of the water.
Yeah, but it's being done in conjunction with the argument that Maduro is a narco lord, and it's like a drug regime, and you have to understand the implication in all of this, and the reason that I would imagine we're even having this debate is because the U.S. is posturing as if there's going to be further military action that goes beyond just strikes on vessels.
Let's go to Tyler. He's going to try to get it. Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, so
then Dylan. Go ahead.
I get Dylan brought this to his oil point theory that he's trying to make. The original point that I was making prior to that about this hurting Russia and helping Ukraine was the trade route argument. It was that they have alternative trade routes that can dodge our sanctions, dodge our tariffs, and things like that. They're trading with each other. Since the war has started between Russia and Ukraine, trade has almost doubled between Russia and Venezuela. And then on top of that, like, so we take them out of the equation, we take Maduro out, that's potentially a shit ton less trade going on. That just, it's not going to take all of it away, but each incremental step. And you go to Iran. When Iran and Israel were fighting in that 12-day war, Israel took out almost half of its long-range launchers. They hit drone facilities, drone part facilities, weapons facilities, rocket facilities. They took out a ton of military production that goes on in Iran. And that even if they didn't take it all out, that hurts what Iran can then turn around and sell to Russia or give to Hamas. So hitting these pipelines and taking them out is effective in all sorts of ways that hurt them in the now. And the weapons, again, is something that probably... So, again, Venezuela...
That's a better argument.
Yeah. Well, I that's what I'm here for, is to make the absolute best arguments and be right 100% of the time. So thank you, Grid, for noticing.
So does anybody think that we're actually doing this?
You got a 1 in 10 ratio
drugs?
going. You got a 1 in 10 ratio going.
Yeah.
Does anybody actually think we're doing?
I want to go to Dusty, and then we're going to Dylan. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, hold on.
Dylan got skipped again.
Hold on. Dusty, I got a couple more things. I was waiting for like 10 minutes. Yeah, let me get a couple more things. We were talking about Venezuela doesn't actually produce a lion's share of the drugs, a vast majority. What they do is offer safe haven to the people that are shipping the drugs.
They're a trade route.
They're Qatar for Hamas in this situation. They're offering safe haven for the people that are actually doing the bad things and the leaders. If we take out the smugglers, we're setting up deterrence. Yeah, of course, we're not going to make a dent in the global drug trade by killing a boat or two full of smugglers. It's to set up deterrence. It's establishing deterrence to tell them, we're not fucking around. If we catch you, you're dying from that shit. It's already been passed.
We didn't catch them.
Dude, there's shitloads of drugs still coming into America, though.
Okay.
We did not catch drugs coming into our country. We shot a boat out of the water and then said there are drugs on it. Well, we just blew it.
And we don't even really know if those are drug dealers, by the way. Can we?
I trust our intel agencies.
You do.
Yeah, I mean that's a weak argument. That's fine. But I really
17 intel agencies said that Russia hacked our election.
All right, let's go.
The same ones that said we had weapons of mass destruction, right?
All right, we're
Or that they had.
They did.
Go ahead, Dylan.
They did.
Dylan, go ahead.
The Russians did interfere in our elections, but that's besides the point. There's a few.
Wait. Did we get that? Is that recorded? He just said that. Did we record that? Because
it's proven in Congress already. The Senate's got it recorded.
Oh my God!
I'm kidding.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Wait, was that recorded? Are we streaming? I was told this was a private conversation.
Bamboozled, bro.
Got him on record as saying that there's an election interference.
So as for the Congo and Rwanda, I just first want to throw out there, that's a war that Trump said he already solved. So I don't know why we're negotiating anything when it comes to Rwanda and the Congo. He said that war was already over, that he negotiated a peace deal, and that's fine. So I don't know why he would need a mineral deal to fix anything. As for the Venezuelans and supporting Ukraine, they produce like 740,000 barrels. That's still quite a lot. That's still something that can have an impact. But in comparison to what reserves they have under their feet, that is the necessarily global earth-shattering, like market-changing potential of having the largest reserves on the planet. It's just they've never been able to meet that because their economy isn't very well managed, to be very blunt. As for the drug smuggling here, Venezuela is cocaine smuggling, but the majority of this cocaine is being smuggled to Europe, is going to the islands and then smuggles to Europe. And so, again, I'm not saying that it's bad to stop drug smuggling. I'm not saying that, I'm against any type of enforcement, but the idea that after decades and decades of the war on drugs, us blowing up ships that are probably going to Europe, not coming to the United States, which so far have yet to really know of what impact that's had when it comes to, actually helping American citizens, helping American people who are at the other end of the needle here, at the other end of the actual drug consumption. So what are we doing here? What are we actually accomplishing by blowing up these boats? Especially since this is probably being done extra legally, which I would like to get into that conversation at some point, that it's one thing to say, hey, Congress, we're going to all come together and we're going to agree. We're just going to start blowing boats out of the water. It's not like this is something that's been done by a previous president before. This is something that Trump, as the executive, chose on his own that we were going to start doing. And Pete Hegseth has carried it out and has blown up 21 ships. And as we've talked about before, and this is the one disagreement I'm going to throw out with Tyler, that he trusts that these are drug smugglers. Rand Paul is not somebody I cite very often, but Rand Paul released the report recently from the Coast Guard saying that over the last year, 79% of the boats intercepted were found to be engaging in illegal, illicit drug smuggling activity, meaning that 20% of the boats that were intercepted in that time period were not engaged in illegal drug smuggling activity. We've blown up 21 boats. What's 20% of 21? I'm not saying that we know that to be the case. I'm just saying that when we have an administration that's being so untransparent about how this is happening, about who's on the ships, providing names, providing physical evidence, where they've decide to do it in one instance or in another instance, but then not to do it for the vast majority of the other instances that have not been approved by Congress, it leads to distrust. And this needs to have, I mean, there's a question about whether this should be happening in the first place, but the fact that he feels so free to do this shows how much the JCPOA and other use of force for military authorization has degraded Congress's ability to just take their hand, put it on the president of the United States and say, that's not your job. That's our job. If we're going to start bombing shit, we get a say.
I would love to argue the legality of it with you, but unfortunately, it's all classified. The OLC opinion backing this is classified. All we have are hearsay from Democrats and Republicans saying what's in it, and then what it cites are other OLC opinions about Syria and Libya that we don't also have access to, unfortunately. So we don't know the legality behind it. It's hard to dispute it.
But I mean,
I think
the
to,
declaration,
I
but
was
let's
just
be
on
clear,
our
the
side and doing
JCPOA
it.
authorizations we're going off of are post 9/11 JCPOA authorizations. That's going to be the final legal underpinning for this. It's going to be the idea that Nicolas Maduro is running an organization similar in nature to Al Qaeda. And that's why America, with imminence, without a declaration from Congress, has to move in and just start bombing shit. Now, whether or not you agree that we should just start blowing up these ships, that we should just start bombing Venezuela, that the president should engage in that type of behavior, the idea that these types of forces are at all equal distant from each other, even close to each other, when it comes to the motivations of what pushes a drug runner, what pushes Nicolas Maduro, and what pushes the Islamist organization Al Qaeda.
So that I don't disagree with.
Hold on, Grant. I want to like maybe rephrase this real quick, and then I'll go to you and Destiny. I want to go to Destiny real quick because he's brought up several times. He doesn't think this is about the drugs, right? And y'all have argued the legality aspect of this, and I think it's interesting. All right, I tend to agree with you, Destiny, that it's not about the drugs, right? However, would you equate a cartel to be an equivalent organization?
But did you say Destiny a second? You said Destiny earlier too.
He said Destiny 3 times.
Yeah, it was like, when did he come on?
Am I Destiny? Am I being referred to, or who is Destiny?
No, Dusty.
Okay, Dusty. Got you.
Destiny, listen,
not Destiny. Dusty. I think maybe my accent. I'm all stopped up. So
there's gonna be some memes there for sure.
Sure, yeah, they're gonna get me. It'll be like Mr. Beef stutters or some shit. It'll be fine.
That wouldn't have happened if they just allowed that cocaine to come through, right?
I'm saying, bro, the pure. Anyway, listen, yeah. So do you equate a cartel to like an equivalent danger to a terrorist organization? Because I know you're saying this is not about drugs. What do you think?
No, not at all. I think that I'm pretty libertarian. I think the war on drugs should end entirely. I think that a cartel is, first of all, a different country's problem. It's not our problem at all. I equate it more to a free market business than anything. But the point is that a cartel is not, their purpose is not to attack Americans. In fact, if they're selling product to America, they want Americans to survive. Whereas like Al Qaeda, that is their purpose and their intent. So no, not at all.
Great. Could I?
With that. Go ahead, Castle. But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna ask Grit a question, because one of the arguments here is that, selling drugs to the U.S. or running a drug cartel and designating them as a terrorist is the reason why we're doing this. But if you think about it, if that were the case, then why aren't we bombing the cartels in Mexico? I mean, Mexico is, some people would call it a narco state at this point. 90% of the fentanyl is coming through
these guys want to do that too. Not to cut you off.
You're not.
These guys want to do that too.
But then why are we attacking? But why are we attacking Venezuelan boats with like the people who are drug running this are like?
That's like the thing these days.
Wait,
the
one more
that's why I'm asking
that. Why not also European mafios? I mean, the mafia is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. If any of that is actually crossing the transatlantic, can we do bombing runs in Italy? Can we do bombing runs in Denmark? Where exactly
just
does
bomb
the
my
limits of
block?
this go?
Just bomb Huntington Station. There's crack dealers all over the place.
Well, we could try 30 years of diplomacy.
I'm going to answer Tyler's earlier kind of pseudo question about how he couldn't, we can't really talk because their ROEs classified to some degree, and we only know some. So what the rumor is, and I believe this, is that since these boats fly no flags, they are not considered terrorists. They're actually, and they're on the high seas. They are considered pirates. They're they are engaged in illegal activities on the high seas, and therefore that is the rumor of why we are able to go weapons free on those guys. I don't know. That seems like a reach to me, but that's the rumor. Again, you're right. It's classified. We don't actually know anything. It's just, Can
we just come on? Jesus fucking Christ. Really, do we have to think about it this deeply? They're trying to do something that's big and flashy to look like they're making an impact, and they don't give a fuck. They don't actually give a fuck if these are really drug dealers. They care that the American people, everybody sees this on social media, and it's a big impact move. This is like classic Trump. It's not about stopping drug dealers. There's no way to even quantify it if it's had any impact on the amount of drugs coming into America. It's ridiculous to even assume that. And so the conversation shouldn't be like, is this really affecting the drug traffic? It's like, no, is this a signal that we're going to intervene in Venezuela and initiate a regime change? And it seems to be that some people believe that. I actually don't think that the Trump administration is even going to try that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think that the potential for success of that's very low.
I think being bald makes you think you're now Charles Xavier.
You think, hold on. You think your potential for success is very low?
I think killing Maduro is highly probable. I don't think it stops there. I think that there's a lot of research done on this, guys, that there's layers within the Venezuelan government and security apparatus that are in place just in case Maduro would fall. And it's of my opinion that you guys remember back in I think it was mid-October, there was a report in the New York Times about how supposedly Maduro offered to give up everything. He would give up oil, he would give up this and that and the other, and as long as America would not attack Venezuela. And yet nothing ever came of that, right? And you would think if the U.S. wants regime change, Maduro's willing to surrender, why wouldn't they just accept that deal? And my assumption on that is that probably was not based in any fact. They were probably floating that story out to the media, hoping that the generals would overthrow Maduro, concerned that there'd be a lack of loyalty there, something like that. We have been trying to, through various diplomatic pressures and sanctions and other means, to cripple this regime, and we've failed consistently. There's a lot of loyalty for Maduro within the government, like it or not. It's very similar to Iran.
All cartels.
And actually strikes, let me just finish, strikes on these random boats leaving Venezuela, that's not going to decrease support for Maduro. It's actually going to embolden people who do support him. It'll make him look like this martyr type figure, and oh my God, I'm the only one defending you from these imperialist gringos. We're making Maduro stronger because the president is a fucking idiot, and the fact that you guys haven't figured that out yet is kind of scary.
First off, your whole first part there was I know Trump's true intent, you're in the room with him, whereas in reality the things you gave is mutual.
It's classified.
It's mutual different things. They all could be true at once. Yes, he could be wanting to stop drugs. Yes, he could also be wanting the regime change that Republicans and Democrats have been working toward for 20 years on the same team. Obama, Trump, George Bush fucking kidnapped Chavez. Well, that's what
true.
They say. So yeah, this has been U.S. policy for decades. Of course, that could be part of it. Of course, showing it off in the media to get your poll numbers up could be part of it. It doesn't have to just be one of those things. It could be all of them. But you're saying, no, it's just this. I know Trump's mind, and it's just this one cynical thing that makes him look like an asshole.
Do you think it's about the drugs?
I think that absolutely plays into it. I think that's his motivating factor because he talks about fentanyl all the time.
Yeah, but Tyler, I haven't read about it, and you guys never denied it.
Wait. I gotta.
Crime generally is a major
factor when picking Venezuela specifically, because it didn't have to be Venezuela when it comes to fentanyl.
Well, I think that's a little bit more to it. One, there's history between the
he's not
two.
Venezuela.
Why Venezuela particularly? If there's so many, I think it's regime change. But why Venezuela particularly?
Sure.
If
that's
not,
that's the low-hanging
just for the
fruit.
social media points.
They refused to come to the table in terms of taking back their migrants earlier, like earlier in the Trump second term.
Wait, but that's the point.
You're
Tyler.
saying that it's a lot more than the drug. I think the drugs is maybe
Wait,
like
but
1 or 2%
Dylan.
maximum, if anything. Like it's such
I think crime is
a
a big
minuscule
motivating
factor in the grander scheme here when it comes to why they're going after
Trump's
the
big
government.
on crime. Crime is one of his main things he keeps harping on.
Well, yeah,
I
that's
think
what he
that's a big
says.
factor.
That's
Yeah,
not
I
our
understand That's
crime.
what he says.
It's
But
not the
it's
only-
one thing to say that and then pardon presidents who smuggle drug into the United States, specifically cocaine, the drug that is being smuggled through Venezuela. That is
That's
blowing up the chips out.
empirical versus anecdote. Yeah, he also pardoned the January 6ers. That doesn't mean his policy isn't focused on cutting down on
Well,
national
what
crime.
I'm saying is, I could see him
This is
blowing
not
up these
national
ships because
crime.
he wants
He's
to
been
present
tough
a
on
good
drugs
face
everywhere.
on
They're
drugs. I
literally,
just don't see that
like,
being the main motivator for
making
going after
huge
Venezuela
seizures
specifically.
in Texas.
But he hasn't. So the point is that the reason why Trump is harsh on Venezuela and not Mexico is because he likes Claudia Sheinbaum and doesn't like Nicolas Maduro. That's
It's because
it.
they're not working
That's
with.
literally it.
Well,
This is
but
thing
that's
that
what I'm
makes
saying.
Mexico's at
If
least
Maduro-
attempting to work with us.
Yeah, Mexico's
not.
working with them. Venezuela's not. Like that's
No,
as
across
simple
the
as that.
border, Venezuela.
Why would-
I didn't say they were succeeding.
Why
They put
would
troops on the
Venezuela have to
border.
work with us on their turf to solve our drug demand?
Because the drugs are being brought in from a Venezuelan hosted gang that is working with the
And-
government.
By the
It
way,
is part of the
I'm
job.
sorry, Tyler. Could you explain
Right, what
to me
happens
how,
in
by
Venezuela
example,
is
Trump-
Venezuela's problem. What happens in the U.S. is to bomb a boat outside of in Venezuela and say that that's addressing our domestic drug problem is absurd. Like the degrees of speculation required to have that make sense is crazy.
It's not. It's deterrent.
Tyler, I
Pretty-
need
pretty
to
friendly.
know.
It's deterrent
why
from
is it
somebody getting on a
anecdotal?
boat. Maybe
Why is it anecdotal for him to pardon a world leader that has been convicted of drug smuggling into the United States? Why is that anecdotal?
Do you know the story behind that?
It's anecdotal because, well,
And you
even
can
if
look
that's
it up. Like,
irrelevant, even
if
the
you
guy
look
was
up right
guilty-
now on Google, Trump
It's
drug
not
smuggling
anecdotal.
pardon, you'll
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that he
And there's
pardoned
more
a
to the
South
story,
American leader
right?
in the last 48
the
hours
guy that was
for drug
convicted
smuggling
in New York
cocaine,
of drug
the very
smuggling
same
was a
drug that
president
smuggled
of his
into the United
country.
States by those Caribbean pirates that we were blowing up.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Even if let's assume he's guilty. I understand what Grin's about to say here in a second, but let's assume he's guilty. It's anecdotal because it's one person versus what his actual policy is across the board on drugs. That's the empirical. You're like he's absolutely been against crime. He's been cracking down on crime with illegal immigration, going after particularly the illegal people first. I mean, people that weren't in the country illegally, they have valid deportation orders. What, 2.3 million, I think he said at the beginning of his term.
Well,
There's
I don't
all
argue
kinds of
that there's specific subsects of crime that he's particularly hard on.
But he's
My point is,
absolutely
I just don't think this is a principled stand on this issue. And if you were to make that stand, you wouldn't make it in Venezuela.
I mean, it might be emotional, probably more emotional.
Hold on. When we are literally having record drug seizures of drugs coming across the border from Mexico, and we still have a problem with
Why not
Venezuela
Mexico?
blowing boats out of the water, all of a sudden starts making sense. Also, it is a very consistent view, as Tyler just said. Trump has very consistently been tough on crime. He wants to be seen as tough on crime. He is doing things that nobody else has bothered to do. Even when people say, yeah, why bother doing it? He's doing it. And he's been very consistent. It's you guys keep trying to say, well, I don't understand why Trump is doing this. Well, just look at the totality of it. Look at the totality.
Well,
Let me ask
look,
you a question, right? And
I'm
maybe I
not,
can-
I'm
I
not a
wanna-
geopolitical expert on South America, but Venezuela and Mexico are two different countries. And if the majority of the drugs are coming across the border in Mexico, then wouldn't the strategy be to do something in Mexico, not Venezuela? I mean, like again, it's like. And then before the election, when I was seeing these reports
He's doing
from
both.
Trump advisors talking about
It's not
how to
either
make
or.
military
He's doing
interventions in
both.
Latin America, the majority of
not
those
both?
reports had to do with Mexico for that reason. Very few of them had to do with Venezuela, if any.
Most of the politicians that Trinidad has killed and replaced with loyalists have been in Mexico. Absolutely, and Mexico's working with it.
Well, hold on. I do want to examine this a little bit, though, right? Like, so, like, I guess to Grid and other people say that Mexico. Well, like, Mexico is about to violate a water treaty with the United States in addition to all the drugs.
I had read about that. I'm not up on it, but I'd read about it.
Yeah, I mean, but they haven't, but they're about to, right? Because there's a drought everywhere. So, like, that's like a big deal coming up now, at least in my local region, right? And to me, it would make way more sense to be like, oh, let's go to war over a natural resource that they're not following up on a treaty. And, oh, if we're actually talking about the drug problem, Mexico first. But to me, it's got to be what Tyler is kind of proposing, where you're taking out this block in their global chain for this to make sense. And where it's the the natural resources, the oil. That's really the only way this makes sense. With the drug stuff being like maybe I don't know, a scapegoat. Like, how do you not see that? Like, how do you disagree with that, Grid?
I'm sorry. I was looking at something like that.
Like, how do you justify if this everything of what you're saying is true, not going for Mexico, and Mexico's about to break a treaty, and
Mexico is currently working with us. They're currently working with the United States. They're providing us with information. I just saw a video the other day of them blowing up tunnels where the people are coming crossing the border through these tunnels. They blew it. It's really impressive with the way the ground sank down. It was awesome. So I think can we just all, I think we can all agree that Trump is willing to play, as long as you're playing ball with him, he's perfectly willing to play ball with you. But the minute that Mexico says, yeah, fuck you, or they violate the water treaty, or they give us bad information on purpose, and Trump's going to be like, all right, that's it, deal's over. Fuck you guys. Now we're going to send troops across the border, which he's promised to do before, and he literally had troops at the border ready to go across. So, he's very consistent. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but he's very consistent in what he's doing.
Why wouldn't we go out to Colombia if it was the drugs then? Why wouldn't we make
China,
Colombia, Peru to be the ones if it's not this globalist, like a global regime kind of fight against these Axis powers over here? Like, if it's not that, why wouldn't you?
Well, that honestly wasn't on my study sheet tonight, was whether or not to go into Colombia. I don't know what we're doing in Colombia right now as far as DEA enforcement or anything like that. But the assignment was Venezuela and blowing boats out of the water. So that's what I studied for.
I'm working with Colombia.
When the fent problem got bad is when we handed Afghanistan back over to the Taliban, and they shut down poppy production. Our drug problem is a direct product of the war on drugs.
That's true. Yeah.
True.
I don't know, man. I do a lot of heroin when I was younger. Fentanyl has been around for a lot longer. It was back when the U.S.
prevalent. It wasn't prevalent because you could get your heroin.
No. I was getting heroin at 16. I'm 37. That was 21 years ago.
Fentanyl was not prevalent. Heroin was.
Yeah, that's when it started. When I came back to New York to visit, maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago, we got a bundle, and I sniffed a shack. You could tell immediately that shit was cut. It is not good. That's 12 years ago.
And if heroin addicts could just buy their heroin, they wouldn't be surprised by having it cut up with all sorts of weird shit that they didn't expect. Like I said, almost all of the drug problems, almost all the organized crime problems, all this shit is directly a product of prohibition.
A lot of talk in the last election about the affordability of housing, not a lot about the affordability of heroin.
Right? No, I reformed my way.
I said this the last time we did the Mexico debate. There's always the debate. There's always the argument about making drug treatment more available to people, and helping drug addicts and doing things domestically to reduce the need.
Seems like it's pretty available.
I don't know. Maybe that would help a little bit. Instead of bombing random fucking speedboats, leaving Venezuela. I don't know. Just a thought.
For Grid and Tyler too, I think that the problem with the argument that Trump cares about drugs and how it's affected, after this pardon of the Ecuadorian guy, I don't know if you guys remember, Trump also pardoned 5 other massive drug traffickers. I mean, I know the libertarians like him, but Ross Ulbricht was the founder of the Silk Road, who basically was able to run drugs and firearms across the globe, and he pardoned him. Ross he clearly doesn't.
Ross Ulbricht actually never did any of that. He simply provided a mechanism for it, and he was
right. Same with Mark Zuckerberg. I bet Mark Zuckerberg in that sense has facilitated more drug sales than anybody else ever.
Yeah, let's go.
That was on the no, that's not the same argument.
Dusty and I had this. We had a debate on this. We were a team on the Ross
I hate this argument though from you, Castle, just because like again, like Biden gave clemency to a bunch of people that had drug sentences. Does that mean he's like doesn't care about drug laws, doesn't care about people?
No
dying from
American
drugs?
president cares about the drug crisis, guys. They don't give
I
a
think they do.
Wait.
Think
They
there was
also,
tons of money
I
there.
never argued Biden cared about
We
it. But
invaded
also,
Panama. We invaded fucking Panama because Noriega is a drug lord, even though we knew he was a drug lord before that. And then Panama became a home base for the Cali cartel.
I don't have a prep.
give a fuck about drugs, guys. If
But I
they
can give
did,
you-
they would do something about it domestically.
Obama, Trump, Obama, or Biden, and then Trump again. I can give you examples, not right now because I'd have to look them up. All of them passing policy to help people in the United States that are on drugs in their own different ways.
Dude,
Like,
I mean,
being
listen,
on
I know
drugs
you
is
have a
different than-
history. So do I. I work in drug treatment. Like, you know, people are seeing their benefits being cut and shit like that. Like, it's harder than ever. It's harder than ever before, I would say, to get clean now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the federal government, state governments also, they don't take it seriously. In fact, a lot of them have shifted over the treatment model to like not even preaching abstinence anymore. There's legal weed everywhere. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
The
like,
hospitals out here will hand out not just clean needles, but clean meth pipes. That's crazy.
yeah, which is fucking, I mean, I get the harm reduction thing. It does make sense from like a public health standpoint.
The
Obviously,
needles make sense. Needles
Yeah.
make sense. But
The
handing
meth
out
pipes,
meth
I don't
pipes
know,
does
but-
not make any sense at all.
that just sounds like it's for a good time, maybe. But
Right. It's a party pack.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, dude, Iran-Contra and the crack epidemic, I mean, this is like standard stuff. Like, we've promoted drug use in America consistently. I don't know if it was always deliberate, really. You know, I don't know if I go that deep into it, but it's clear, like, a lot of our international policy and our interventions, especially in Central and Latin America, have proliferated drug use, and the
I'm gonna
government is
qualify.
totally fine with that. They
Reagan
consider
and-
it, you know, a necessary
Let me rephrase
evil.
this a little bit. Let me rephrase this a little. Let me go to Grid and Tyler here on this one. Here, okay, y'all seem to be the most hawkish on this. What like level of action would you be okay with by Trump and the Trump administration against Venezuela? You talking full-on invasion, regime
With-
change, like
Yeah,
what-
no, and I don't
with
think you
congressional
should.
approval or no?
I mean,
So-
both, either or. You can explain. Yeah, let's hear. What do you think?
I'll go first so Tyler can organize his thoughts because I'm very cut and dried on this. And I've thought about this because it's been a subject that we've been talking about quite a bit lately. While I'm, look, if we blow speedboats out of water with narco guys running drugs and shit, fine, whatever. But we have a horrible track record when it comes to replacing governments. And all it ends up doing is causing us more trouble. I would much rather us just try and basically contain Venezuela enough until it just fails on its own and take away their revenue streams as much as we possibly, as far as drugs go, and getting help from the U.S. as much as possible. And either Maduro gets taken out and somebody collects $50 million for putting his head on a pike, which at some point one of the guys close to him is going to look at that and go, "I'd like to be boss, and not only can I be boss, but I can get a $50 million payday." And Maduro's.
Why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah. Why do you think they wouldn't just kill the guy who brought the head and keep the 50?
Right.
it needs to be
right,
51 million. Looking for 51.
Yeah. But I just don't think that we should be installing governments anymore. I think we've proven we have a horrible track record at it. We don't need to do that anymore. I'm a non-interventionist for the most part. Look, if boats come towards us, fine, take care of that. But we don't need to go into somebody else's country looking to fix their fucking problems. I would much rather let them just fail on their own.
These
That's
people are
my
guilty of
opinion.
being on a boat. You are as guilty as they are. You have a boat, right?
I do have a boat.
That's what they're guilty of, is having a boat.
No, they're not. That's not what
Okay,
they're
what
doing.
about you? How far would you want them to go?
I don't want any laws to be broken, but congressional approval.
That's a
was
hell of a
certified.
clarifying statement.
If congressional approval was given, I think I would be on board with as far as an Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela. Maybe
nice.
Afghanistan was a
What-
mistake.
Tyler, you cut out on my end for just a second. What did you say?
an Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela, where we're there for about
That's what I
60
thought
years.
you
Does,
said.
does
Are
that
you
include
high?
the 20
You
years
said
and 2
Japan
trillion?
has so
Or?
much better connotations, but you had to say Afghanistan.
Japan, I know, and South
Venezuela has
Korea,
great
Germany.
food.
I think
food there.
leaving Afghanistan was a mistake.
Tyler, I had
That's
such
where,
high hopes for you.
that's where I side with the neocons, man. Nation building is a pretty good thing. Why not make everywhere like America? Then we can go on vacation places again.
Inside every Venezuelan is an American waiting to come out.
Well, go ahead.
Venezuela looks like they need some democracy.
Inside them also is some dogs, so maybe that'll convince them.
So look, I do want to throw a few things out there.
Man,
What percentage, and I know we're going back to drugs for a second here, what percentage of drugs coming into the United States is coming from Venezuela, right? Because if we were making a decision to make this intervention based upon drugs, then doing this and investing all the manpower, investing all the money, we have 15,000 soldiers. We got 14 big ships, including the largest aircraft carrier, the Ford, in the entire U.S. arsenal, just floating off the coastline. Yes, that is a pressure cooker. Yes, that makes people around Maduro think of options. Yes, it makes Maduro have to keep everything on high alert, and it puts him in a difficult position. But it also costs a lot of money. And if after 2 years, all we did was...
those guys are getting paid anyway.
Well, I mean, it costs money for the fuel to
It doesn't matter where that it doesn't matter where that aircraft carrier is
It
parked. We're
costs
paying
money
for it.
to, bomb things.
Yeah, you don't think it costs
does
more to
cost-
station it out there than
It's
it
not
does
just
to
a
park
question
it?
about the cost of the personnel. It's also a question
No,
of the
I bet
cost
it doesn't.
of the entire operation itself. And depending upon how long this runs, the price
Actually,
tag
I
on
do
that
have
will
I
go
have a
more into the
non-smart ass answer for this.
billions of dollars. And so when I think about the money invested, the time invested, the international reputational damage we're doing to ourselves, it just doesn't make sense based off of drug enforcement for us to be doing what we're doing right now. Now, based upon
Right, so
America's
I have a
national
non-smart ass
security
answer.
based upon something that's different from that is asking
Yeah.
what would be best for America in this situation. If Maduro was to go, that's 740,000 billion barrels of oil, 740,000 barrels of oil that is more available towards a Western ilk than necessarily China. That is a country that does have rare earth that is controlled by gangs we might be willing to do business with in order to get access to those rare earth. Does that mean we should do business with those gangs? Not necessarily, but what's in our nation's best interests? Maybe it is in our nation's best interest. And so whether or not we should intervene based
I have a
upon
non-smart
that,
ass answer.
I could see Marco Rubio. I could see the people in immediately Trump's orbit just thinking, look, invading, putting troops on the ground, that's too costly. Standing back, adding on the pressure year after year, just seeing what happens while trying to avoid too big of a political risk, a bombing here, a bombing there, waiting for something to happen. That seems much more up Trump's alley as a historical fence sitter.
Okay, so I have a non-smart ass answer. First is I actually would rather the Gerald R. Ford be off the coast of the Americas, south and north, than parked off the coast of Afghanistan and near Russia and all of that right now, because I'm tired of fighting wars in the fucking desert. So yes, park that shit right the fuck off of the coast of Venezuela. I'm perfectly fine with that. It costs the same. And it's an easier flight home for our boys when they need to take Liberty. So so that part of it I don't care about. I don't see that as a drain on our resources. We're gonna pay, those guys get paid no matter what, and we're not. I don't think it's costing us anything. As far as the munitions,
maintenance,
we can even write that down as. I mean, we fly those flights, we send those bombs. Every single day. The United States military blows shit up. I just don't see this as we're not fighting a war. We're not fighting a war. We're just occasionally smoking a camel. I mean, not a camel, but I mean a cigarette boat, and it's fine. And I kind of when it got a little bit smart ass there at the end, but seriously, I don't see that we're spending a ton of resources to do this. But you're right, we are getting a lot of mileage out of it. There's a lot of pressure on Maduro. There's a lot of pressure on the layers of the onion that Tyler spoke about. That is his inner circle and he literally the entire government basically of Venezuela is. cartel or otherwise involved in illicit activities. Venezuela is such a shithole that they literally have actual slavery, not just sex slavery. I mean actual slavery. And for anyone to be like, why we shouldn't just carpet bomb them into oblivion, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't vote against it.
We're talking to each other on devices made by slave labor in China. Your outrage is situational.
Wow.
Now they get.
I don't follow your logic.
They don't have people with automatic weapons standing over them saying.
You
completely contradicted
you
yourself.
opposed the intervention, and then you just said you're okay with carpet bombing. So which is it?
I could understand it. Can understand.
Okay,
He likes a little seasoning.
I don't agree with it, but I'm okay with them parking the boat off the shore.
Well, are you familiar with gunboat diplomacy?
Yes.
Yeah, so you do understand that it's not about just parking the boat there just to occasionally shoot around. There's a bigger objective to all of this.
Yeah.
There's a bigger goal here, and it's unrelated, or at least only I would say.
If it's a side effect, if it is in fact a side effect of the gunboat diplomacy that Maduro caves or his lieutenants take his ass out, or there is some change that benefits us, great. If there isn't, we tried.
Okay, so I want to answer Dylan's question
Tyler,
as well. I got Dylan asked a question about the cost benefit analysis of doing that. The reason why we're doing it, what is the downside right now for anybody in any of these countries to the south of us that has a politician that takes cartel money? The government's not going to do much to them because they're fucking scared shitless of the cartel who kill politicians and police 10 times the rate of what happens in other countries, maybe higher than that. I think they reached 50, 100 a year at one point. They're just politicians dropping left. What's to stop these people from taking the money? What deterring factor is there? Should we just ignore it and allow it to happen and just try to catch it on the border?
Dude, we just pardoned a guy who took money from the cartels.
Yeah, again, I already addressed that anecdote. I'm talking about the overall empirical strategy.
Well, no, I mean, to your point, to your question, there's no incentive because there's no consistent threat from the United States for taking money from the cartels. I mean, dude, being a Latin American country is basically based on historical precedent. There's a reason to be afraid of the United States at all times.
We aren't talking about any details to that. He could have been a friend of the cartels that's willing to now work with the Trump administration and give them something
to help Prospera. I understand that.
So that's a deal. That's somebody working with Trump. Well, how would you handle this?
It's a deal with a lot of things baked into it. Do you think that a guy who was connected to the cartels is going to go back down to Honduras and say, by the way, guys, I can't do that anymore. I got to help Prospera out. Peter Thiel really needs me. He's going to go right back into the same networks that he was connected to before, because that's what his power is predicated on, and that's pretty much all over Latin America. A lot of those states are narco states.
We gain something out of it because he's willing to work with us. The point of Venezuela,
but he could still be working with the cartels. So it's not stopping the cartels, which was your initial assertion.
I'm making a point to what Dylan was talking about, the cost benefit analysis of Venezuela, not that Trump's inconsistent, which he somewhat is. I'll give you that. Anyways, it's about establishing deterrence. So there's a bunch of people that take cartel money in all these countries. We're going into the one that the United States has been trying to get out of office for fucking 20 years, him and his predecessor. The one that everybody on the left and the right in politics agrees is stealing elections, oppressing his people, etc. This is to show anybody that if you take cartel money, we are not fucking around. This is the same deterrence that Israel established in the Middle East.
But Tyler, that's the part that it falls apart at the end there, because that precedent can't be established unless it's established in places other than just Venezuela. Otherwise, the only precedent you're setting is that if you're Venezuela and we don't like your regime, we'll take you out. But if everybody else is dealing with the cartel, it's fine.
It's not because they're Venezuela. It's already been established that Venezuela is refusing to cooperate in any way. They wouldn't take back their criminal.
Tyler, this hasn't been happening in Venezuela for longer, though.
Let me just jump in here. I want because I think that we can explore this a little further. I'm going to posit a position that I don't think anybody's represented, but I think should be represented because there's a group of people saying it. I'm one of the people saying it. I say we should just go invade this country, right, and just take it over. Let's actually do the regime change. Let's just go all out. Like Grid and Tyler haven't full on said it. I'm like, let's go in there. You know, I think it is. I'm not buying it's for drugs. It's bullshit. It's definitely for the natural resources and the oil and the petrodollar and fuck Russia and fuck this global life. That's why we're doing it. That's what we should be doing. I feel like we should just be honest and say that it's whoop ass time, and that's why we're going in there. That's what we should do. And like I think nobody here said that, so I'm going to say it now. Like I think that we would be knocking one more little piece of the pie off that's in this little nasty alliance they have, and that helps our American imperial intentions. And I think it would help places like Ukraine. I think it would help like places like Israel because we're knocking all these things down and we're helping our allies. Why are y'all so hesitant whenever it comes to this?
Dude, it's logistically fraught for a lot of reasons. For one thing, Venezuela is very mountainous, so it's not a matter of like you just send the military and their ground troops and it's just you set up a foothold and well that's it and we won, yay. Like there's issues with supplying your troops. Venezuela has combined military strength like conventional and paramilitary force of like 100,000 people. You know, there's renegade groups and factions that will vie for power after the government falls. You know, I already talked about this at the start of the panel. Then it becomes much more like Dylan was talking about the sunk cost already. Can you imagine the cost of trying to hold shit together in Venezuela after Maduro falls?
I answered.
It becomes Puerto Rico the second.
You ready for the solution? We figured it out. They did a good job. Rwanda, we hired them just like the French did. Rwanda cleaned up all their contracts. They know how to deal with militias. They know how to deal with the people in the mountains. Problem solved. Well,
we already have somebody, Gibbs froze.
We lost Gibbs, but
they already have somebody.
Venezuelan
he lost his
M23 rebels
connection.
aside.
Got him.
They already have somebody they want to put in place as the replacement president.
Dude, Tyler would get his wish, another Afghanistan, if we fucking send troops into Venezuela. It'd be another 20-year struggle with nothing to gain from it.
Nothing to gain. Women getting education
And it would probably
and living in unoppressed lives. Why do you hate women? Why do you hate women? And they were allowed to go to school. You know, I'm all for it.
PMCs. Do you not like what? You don't agree that we can use PMCs like Rwanda to clean out the narco terrorists?
I think it's a lot more complicated than you realize, and I think that's why they haven't. It's the same with Iran that I've always said to you. That's why they don't send the military in. If it was easy, they would just do it. They did it in a bunch of other countries.
Yeah, but we don't hold anything. The problem is now look, I could get on board.
That's the problem
Gibbs,
right there.
I could get on board with what Gibbs says. If we look,
it says
if we sent the 160th SOAR down there, we sent 5th Group, we sent a bunch of, we sent some guys down there that do serious shit and fuck shit up and took over the country, and we fucking kept it, and it became Puerto Rico the second. No problem.
But we don't do that.
U.S. territory. You can't be a citizen. But we rule everything and we tax your ass.
Okay, can I just make a point and not to get into
Ukraine? If we did that, I could get on board.
I've had a million debates about Ukraine, a number with Dylan. Let me just if we purport to care about sovereignty, we can't just do things like that.
That's the problem.
We can't.
I don't think that. I mean, okay, I actually agree with you 100%. If we purport to care about sovereignty, I think that
hold on.
is the biggest lie of the last 20th century. Like we see,
you're sovereign until somebody conquers you, and then we're sovereign.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's a lie, and I think Russia is
king is dead. Long live the king.
It's a lie. Yeah, they've gone in there and invaded Ukraine. They came up with bullshit, did it, and I think they showed that the emperor has no clothes.
Okay,
wait, Gibbs,
part
that
of
doesn't
the
mean
Russian
sovereignty is a lie. That just means sovereignty, like law and order, is something that has to be maintained. If you don't maintain it, if you don't have a power base, then you don't have it. Venezuela doesn't have it because they're shit at managing their economy. There's been a successful sanctions campaign, successful pressure campaign, and so therefore right now the amount of sovereignty that they'd like to have is a lot less than what they actually have. But that doesn't mean it's dead, Gibbs. It just means you need to maintain it.
Well, it needs to be rebuilt.
There's also something to get under the idea. I know nobody wants to say this, but Russia's whole argument about invading Ukraine and their right to a big part of it, and yeah, it's a propaganda narrative, but nevertheless, is, well, the U.S. doesn't respect other people's sovereignty. Look at Iraq, look at Syria, look at Libya, blah, blah, blah. We can't set that precedent and then expect other great powers not to do the same thing. And we can't set that precedent and not expect other countries to look at America and say, wow, fuck that, I'd rather do business with China, which is pretty much what happened in much of Africa. You know, they can establish developmental relationships with China that, yes, are exploitative, but they don't involve violent coercion or the threat of violent force.
We won't work with those countries in China. We won't work with Mali. We won't work with Ghana. We won't work with those countries because they literally are nothing but human rights violations. It's an entire
Mali, and say how all the coup governments post-coup, I agree. It's because the coup governments are aligned with Russia. But you can't tell me all of the places that China is developing economically in Africa we wouldn't want a stake in. In fact, I'm pretty sure the IMF floated loans to those places.
Well, the IMF does that to control the currency of the world, but that's irrelevant. That's a dumb point to make. But
it's not a dumb point. The IMF is an extension of like American world hegemony. Everybody knows
that's how we control.
It's a means for right. So, but my point is, you would have a stronger American hegemony if that's really what you guys want. If we respect other countries' sovereignty.
What I want is irrelevant because as a country, as a nation, we conquered the world and then we gave it all back. So obviously, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. What do you mean?
We conquered the world for what, like 10 years?
We conquered the world and then we gave it all back. We gave
How did we conquer the world?
To Japan.
Dude, we conquered the world from like 1991 until 2001. RIP, the American Empire, 10 years.
Well, also when we give stuff back, it's not just because we want to give it back. I mean, like making Japan a state would probably be a very difficult process that would come with a lot of resistance. Same thing with the Philippines. Same thing with, a lot of territory. It's part of the reason why many Republicans are uncomfortable with the idea of turning Puerto Rico into a state, even though it has an identifiable landmass, a population. So it's, people say, oh, we gave it up like it was a gift, but I mean, after a lot of times we used it. We used the Philippines for military purposes.
We don't really give it back. We say, here, now you manage this the way that we want you to. It's just sort of a...
There's a few things I wanted to get into. I wanted to game this out a little bit, Gibbs, if you'd let me. Like an actual scenario, because, I actually have some agreement with Non-Smoker here on the idea that if a nation is sovereign, it must be sovereign. Therefore, the United States cannot just say, we don't like Maduro, therefore, goodbye Maduro. That's why I said, is it within America's interest for Maduro to go? Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean that I support going in and removing Maduro, just out it'd be clearly within our interests if we had access to 740,000 more barrels a day and the largest oil reserves on the planet. It'd be within any country's interest to have access to those oil reserves, especially in an energy pinch. Number one, I don't think it would be like Afghanistan if we were to militarily intervene in Venezuela like Gibbs and Tyler are suggesting. That doesn't mean that it would be fun or it would be good. It's just that this is the one memory and war memory most Americans have. It's that in Iraq. And I don't think
what do you think would be different about it?
Compared to those countries, because number one, like the sects that led to a lot of the interfighting that left America kind of in the dust. Venezuela doesn't exist in that way. There's no Sunni, there's no Shia divide, these type of like religious and intertribal, those things don't exist. Basically. There are conflicts in Venezuela, conflicts between different gangs, conflicts between different like people who are power brokers who want to take over power, but it doesn't have a lot of the same religious connotations or like cross-border terrorist organizations that would be crossing borders. There'll be gangs, but it's I don't think it will necessarily look like that war. I do think that the biggest danger is we have a Libya-style situation where we go in, we decapitate the leadership, we say, yippee, whoever comes in next better not smuggle drugs into the United States, we leave, and then different gangs and power brokers fight over territory and land, where the opposition would maybe take like a third of the country, the military would like take the capital, and then you just have a ton of violence and chaos where you're never really able to get the train back on the track. That's the thing that concerns me. So if we took it upon our own moral responsibility to go in there and say, we're going to remove the government of Nicolas Maduro because it serves our interests, we might actually leave the Venezuelan people in a worse place. I don't think Venezuela improves until Maduro goes, but how he leaves, if we go in there and steal their revolution from them, that might end up derailing the train from the track in a way that's going to get a lot of people
Now
killed.
you're just inviting the CIA to go in and do what the CIA does. Are you in Ukraine currently, or are you back in the States?
I just got back from Ukraine a few weeks ago.
Okay. I was just curious. I didn't know what time zone you were on.
I think the only scenario where the United States should maybe intervene is a scenario where the government has decided that a large-scale military crackdown in reaction to a large protest killing thousands of people, certain select strikes to stop teams headed out to kill protesters. I could imagine a scenario like that. But the idea that
I don't even think
the
it-
ones to go in there and create
was-
something,
one thing-
we need to create
Dylan, if they
an
were going to
overthrow.
do that,
I don't agree with
they
that.
could've- Well, see, Dylan, if they were going to do that, this is why I'm much more in the like camp of like, yeah, it's obviously not for drugs, in my opinion. It's obviously take down the alliance, like kind of thing in my mind. It's in our best interest. Like I fully am on board with that, right? If we were going to do that, he had already hired Cuban death squads to kill civilians. Like we have evidence of that. Like we know that it already happened. Like if we were going to invade, I don't know why we didn't invade then. You know, if that was going to be a reasoning, I don't know. Like I feel like now it's just more.
Well, then my argument would have been if there was a time to intervene, it would have been when they opened fire, not months after the fact. Once there's a whole other different conglomeration of reasons that are motivating us.
They stole 2 elections.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna.
Yeah. Let me. Because that's a great point. That you guys have made. The interesting thing about that is, when we put the bounty in place and all of that, currently, I don't believe as an American you can enter Venezuela. Like, if you go there and they find you, well, first of all, they're not going to let you in the country. If you somehow manage to get in the country, like you cross a border somewhere, you come in through, some way. They're likely to kill you. So really the only assets that we have left in the country are basically CIA and NSA and DIA and alphabet soup guys. That's it. We don't have anyone else in the country right now, because they will literally kill you as an American if you're there. So that, I think, kind of plays to your point that you're right. Absolutely. That we could and we should probably just sit back, and we may have missed the opportunity, and just let the cards fall where they may, and put the pressure on them and let them fold, and then pick up the pieces with, I think what you're kind of referencing is the idea of surgical strikes, and then put some people in play, maybe even hire some of our own Cuban death squads to go over there. But it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's really fluid in Venezuela, and they're all psychopaths that are running around running that country right now. They're not like, it's not like dealing with like normal politicians. So I think that we sometimes forget that.
Right. I want to talk about the sovereignty point. Both you guys brought up.
Yeah, we're just talking with you.
All right, so the sovereignty point you guys brought up, bro. Yes, nations should have sovereignty, but sovereignty also comes with a set of rules and policies that you need to follow. And if you're rigging elections, killing your own people, jailing your political adversaries for no crime, you're stealing billions of dollars worth of other companies' money at gunpoint. And then on top of that, you are violating another nation's well-being by having state-sponsored terrorists, narco-terrorists, run illegal immigrants, some of which are violent, and drugs into those countries, and killing politicians in many of those countries. Then yes, like eventually you have violated national sovereignty. When you're branching out, when Tren de Agua, who is hosted in Venezuela, who is working in coordination with the Venezuelan government, is going into several other nations and killing politicians, they don't get sovereignty arguments anymore. They're violating other people's sovereignty.
We lost it during Fast and Furious. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think Fast and Furious did all that. All it did was put a bunch of guns that we were supposed to be tracking into circulation so we could see where they were going, and then we lost track of those guns.
I understand what it is, but your argument falls apart unless you're willing to use it both ways right there.
That's not a violation of sovereignty, though. That's just trying to track. That's how we get intel and things like that. The scandal was that we lost the guns.
We get intel on crime by causing crime.
We put in guns into the gun trafficking was already going on. We took tagged guns and inserted them in there so we could follow where they went. Yes, that's investigating crime. Yeah,
I understand that after you want Maduro gone, but I think that if we were to go in there and just remove him ourselves and put troops on the ground. I don't know if that support holds domestically in the United States. I'm just talking about this in practical terms. Fuck morality. In practical terms, I don't think Americans want 2 to 3 years in the Venezuelan jungle fighting gangs. They're going to be fighting about stuff that none of these soldier boys are going to have any knowledge about. They're going to have to get local translators. They're going to need to build an entire structure for something that Trump, I don't even think, is signed on to. He understands the problem with it. So then what's the other option? You do a strike, you remove the government through decapitation. Okay, but unless we're willing to put troops on the ground, then we have a Libya situation. And then besides people bringing up Libya every time they want to make fun of American interventionism, they'll just bring up Libya and Venezuela as a country that is now torn in half by gang violence and opposition leaders fighting from different capitals of support. And so I'm looking at this, and the safest bet from my position is to sit back and wait for either an inciting incident, i.e. Maduro decides, 2 apartment buildings full of, the opposition, we're just going to burn from the ground, and it starts some protest movement. And, it gets to a point where the regime is going to collapse and they have to use overwhelming violence to stop it. And at that point, we strike them once they start mowing down protests or something, some inciting incident, instead of us trying to create something, or revanchism, which the government of Venezuela has engaged in since the government of Hugo Chavez and before, when it comes to Guyana. And there have been real threats towards the state of Guyana for quite a time now, which is actually on a path to produce more barrels of oil than Venezuela, just due to the efficiency of how they're working with American oil producers, how they're managing their resources much better. And Venezuela, in response to that, but also due to its revanchism, have talked about interventionism. These are 2 potential inciting incidents where in Guyana's case, we can get the international community behind us because it would be a situation kind of like Kuwait. And in the other instance, the massacre would be so overwhelming, or this incident would be not hopefully, but if you would want this to succeed, would get such public reaction that the general Venezuelan public, who have probably already signed on to Maduro's leaving, could sign on to it. But outside of those 2 scenarios, which require more work than just the United States to get something done, I don't think everything else is a sure bet. I think it's actually a really risky endeavor.
They have 20 jets.
So let's go.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, your Castle. Yeah, go Castle. Sorry.
I was just going to bring up, because a lot of these scenarios involve either a strike or hoping that the Maduro regime falls in some way. But I think, Tyler mentioned it and Grid mentioned it in some way. They're not going to let Americans in. And also they just had recent elections where Venezuelans voted for the opposition, and they were obviously rigged against the opposition. So in that case, why not just have the international community, the IFES, that basically is for supporting rights to participate in free and fair elections, go in and make a deal with Maduro, say, if you conduct a fair election, we'll back away from, bombing the ships in the ocean or whatever. We don't have to strike anybody. We don't have to do anything militarily. And then they can have a free and fair election where the people can decide. I think that's a fair diplomatic way that maybe Rubio is talking about.
I'm the moderator, and I'm not supposed to answer this, but I'm going to answer it. It's because they're a bunch of bitches. That's why.
Who enforces that on the ground, though? Is that going to be UN peacekeepers? Is that going to be some coalition of countries?
It'd have to be the UN. It'd have to be they wouldn't let the US do it, right? We wouldn't have to be involved. I was just saying it would have to be that would be the only way to an international organization like that.
The Blue Helmets could deal with Venezuela's gangs?
Wait, why would gangs have to do with the election though?
Well, just because that's who controls the elections.
Like a free and fair election could take place.
But that's not
nobody to control
that wouldn't be the deal.
If the government's broken down, you need somebody on the ground to stop the breakdown. Or bad parties.
Dylan is saying before, right, 100%.
No, but Grid, you're acting like that it's going to be overrun during the election. I'm saying you have to have an election, and then if there's a fallout. Okay, if there's a fallout, then obviously you're going to have people there, but that's not going to be part of the deal.
Castle, let me just walk you through your logic. All right, I just tell me where I'm wrong in this logic train that I'm about to give you. Okay, you tell me. Stop. All right, IMF or whatever, they come in, they make these rules. They're going to make it a free and fair election. Cool, we're coming. And then they decide they're going to bring the UN peacekeepers. That's who's going to back them up against the cartel of the sun and the Venezuelan government when they decide, go fuck yourself, we can't buy them off. And what's going to happen? the UN is going to put their little hats on and they're going to put their head between their legs and they're going to roll over and say, fuck me, daddy, like they do every single time and push comes to shove. Is that not exactly what's going to happen? We're going to be at square one, like that we were right beforehand, except maybe now we've had an international incident?
I mean, if Venezuela wants to start killing people from other countries and start an international war, good luck. Then they're basically screwing themselves even worse. If they want to do that,
or even a step before that, they could just do like Iran did and say, nope, you can't get in here. Like, oh yeah, we're here to make.
Okay, but then the deal's off. I mean, I'm saying if they don't want to do that, then the deal's off. But I'm just saying that's the opportunity that they have if they don't want to get bombed or if they don't want to be invaded militarily. I'm not saying that it's the best.
Hold on. So then they just bought like time indefinitely by like doing this.
Yeah, they're buying time. They're buying time, but I think that's beneficial if for Maduro if he wants to buy more time. But I think that staves off any military intervention.
I got a jet.
Did you?
I just got a jet real quick. I got a jet real quick. I'm not going to tell you the reason. Well, I was chalking it up to I'm scared that non-smoker is going to crush my argument, and I'm running from him. Let's go with that.
That's right. That's right. Another foe vanquished.
I wonder what he's doing.
I do want to bring up one thing I'd be remiss. I feel like it's pertinent based off recent news. Do we think there's any concern with the Pete Hegseth and the Survivors scandal here? Is this going to be?
Tyler left just as you brought that up, huh?
Yeah, coincidence. I can see he must have known somehow. What are our thoughts here? Castle, why don't you start us off with that? You think it's going to be a spicy story?
Well, I think it is a spicy story, but if history has shown us anything, I mean, with the whole incident with Hegseth before this, Signalgate, I think it was called, I really don't see him being let go in this situation by the Trump administration. So I think Congress will make a fuss about it. They'll try to make it a big thing, but at the end of the day, I don't think it really changes anything.
Process is the punishment.
Is it a war crime? Is it a war crime?
Based on what I've been reading, and I know there's a lot of classified information out there that hasn't been released, it seems like it would be a war crime based on the second strike.
No, yeah, we'll just go to circle. Dylan, what do you think?
Whether it's a war crime or what I think of Pete Hegseth,
like this, what do you think?
Would I go get a beer with him?
This specific situation with the kill the survivors thing.
There's a bunch of things you would have to assume in order for this strike to be legal. Number one, you'd have to assume that the president is, by ordering these strikes as commander-in-chief, he's acting within his legal authority to do so in the first place, both by using the authorization for use of military force, designating these group terrorist organizations, even though they're largely engaging in the financial transaction of drugs for profit. In order to say that that's legal. That's the first thing, that even engaging in any bombing by using that pathway is legal, and that the president of the United States doesn't have to ask Congress. Then you have to assume that the way that the strike was conducted is legal. And what we know right now is that there was two strikes. There was an initial strike that killed, I believe it was 9 people, and then another strike which killed the remaining 2. We have not seen the footage. Footage does exist of this. I hope the administration posts the footage online, as they have posted footage of other strikes before, so I don't know what would restrict them from doing it. But from the senators who saw it and were a part of the briefing that happened earlier today, it seemed that there's some consensus that there's no evidence that Hegseth himself ordered to kill them all, which was the way people, one of the quotes that people were using. But it seemed that there was also one of the quotes that stuck with me from one senator was, it was one of the most concerning things I've seen in the way that the second strike was done. And so that leads me to believe that there's a good chance that the boat that they were using was disabled, that they weren't able to continue to move along with that boat, and that the strike is being based off of the legal idea that, well, those guys in the water who can no longer move around might call back to their buddies, and they might come and grab the drugs and then save the drugs. And since the drugs are a weapon against America, we have the right to blow it up. This legal logic, I don't think, will hold. I think there's too many barriers in between the legal assumptions you would have to make to say that this strike was legal and legally conducted. You would have to assume, first off, that the administration has completely told the truth. You'd have to assume that it's legal for them to be doing these strikes in the first place. And you would have to assume that the use of drugs as a weapon, as an attack against America is a fine concept, and that they were still somehow a threat after their boat was disabled. There's so many barriers you have to cross to say that this is not a war crime, that it's going to be, I think the administration is going to be on the defense for it for a bit.
Dusty, what do you think?
After that, I think that he basically stated everything well. I agree with Dylan. And I think that we would need to know what the reason was for the secondary strike. But I think I agree with everything before that, right? Like, we would need to get all the way through. This is legal. This was a legal action, and then get to the question of, well, why did you strike him again?
All right, non-smoker.
Yeah, of course it's a war crime. I mean, I think the strikes themselves are probably a war crime, and I don't know, like, in terms of, is there going to be a blowback or like repercussions or anything? No, I think in my view, people like this tend to act with impunity for the very fact that they know that there will be no blowback. It's like a micro shock and awe. Like, why don't we do the most visually? And in this case, obviously the footage was not released or whatever, not the public anyway, but, like, it's about the viciousness of this. It's about setting an example. And I don't know, I really have no faith that anybody will be prosecuted under the due process of law for what is obviously a war crime. Yes.
All right. Well, this will be a first if it happens, but 100% consensus going around here. I have a feeling the grid's not going to agree with the rest of y'all on this. So
yeah, I don't agree at all.
What are your thoughts?
I don't agree at all. If your job is to destroy a target, you destroy a target. If it takes 2 missiles, you use 2 missiles. It's the end of story. We don't know what their ROE is. We don't understand what they we are making not even armchair quarterback calls on something that professionals do. These aren't idiots. These aren't people that just do shit for no fucking reason. These are fucking professionals that did their fucking job, and they did it well. And that's the end of the story.
It's their integrity that's in question, not their competence.
Yeah. They're also not good people.
So I do not in general question the integrity of
What do you think that the U.S. has ever committed a war crime?
I'm sorry?
I do
Has
want
the
to put
U.S.
out.
ever committed a war crime in your view, though?
No.
Great. If that's the case.
We've only committed war crimes and wars we've lost.
Well, actually, Canadians.
Right, the only
define
war
how
crime
many
is not killing
reasons
enough of
we
them.
have the term war crime, so I don't know that we've ever risen to that level of. But we'll figure it out. I'm sorry, you were going to ask.
Other countries commit war crimes? Can other countries commit war crimes?
I don't know. Have they?
I'm asking you. By your standard, can they not?
By my standards?
Yeah.
I believe that an example of war crimes such as beheading unarmed men, yes, has happened.
Right. Would that constitute a war crime of a different variety or category than killing possibly just random people on the sea?
No, that's not the same thing. If you think it's the same thing, you're a complete fucking idiot.
How is it different?
I mean, you can call me names, but I mean, I just
I'm not calling you a name. I'm saying that if you believe
I'll
that
be the idiot. What's the
literally beheading somebody with a fucking sword that is unarmed is a war crime, that equates somehow to sending
is it the sword or is it the unarmed?
To behead people. Is that what you're saying?
That we
as long as their head is
don't even know the ROE. You don't know if anyone was armed. You know nothing, and you're trying to make an armchair quarterback.
You know as much as I do.
Right,
Yeah,
which is why
if they're on a sinking ship, they're probably not armed and dangerous to us.
Well,
it's safe to say that they're not dangerous.
People in Afghanistan are not armed and dangerous to me, but yet we kill them.
Yeah, I have a problem with that too, incidentally.
I'm just trying to figure out where your standard is.
Because the argument being made is that they are dangerous to you. The argument that's being made is that the drugs that are being brought into the United States is a threat to you and to me and to everyone in this room. That's a threat to American citizens. That it is a type of war, and therefore that gives us authority to strike them. But I would make the argument, and I know many people have been destroyed by drugs, but you have to make a conscious decision to purchase a drug. You have to make a conscious decision. I'm going to buy heroin. I'm going to go buy cocaine. I'm going to go do this. You might be compelled by addiction, but that's already, once you've signed in you've already punched your card at that point.
You have to go quite far out of your way to get the.
To just say unambiguously,
They're gonna
that
make a
this
libertarian of
100%
you
is the
yet,
same and can be treated the same legally when no previous president, including those who have actually declared the war on drugs, have ever gone this far before. I think it's getting way ahead of ourselves before we even talk about this specific incident. And from the briefing today, we know that there were 4 strikes after the initial. There was the initial strike and then the follow-up strikes after the 9 people were killed and there were 2 people remaining out there. I understand that there are people in the U.S. Army that are fantastic people. I was raised by a U.S. Marine, but after, spending a little time talking to people from across the globe, international fighters, Ukrainian fighters, people all across the world, all sorts of people can end up committing war crimes. I don't think that there is an army in the world that is invincible against the disgusting allure of committing atrocities against your fellow man for reasons of revenge, for reasons of like sadomasochistic like type of sexual desire, whatever it is. There are people like that, I think, in every army, and it is the job of the army to keep those types of people in check and try to reduce the amount of those people that are in the armed forces. So while I do trust, U.S. service members, I don't necessarily trust every single soldier once given an illegal order to say, wait a second, the U.S. Army handbook says, or, wait a second, I don't know if this order is 100% moral. If that was the case, then, things like My Lai wouldn't have happened.
Or
Excess has been on the record telling soldiers to not talk about crimes they may have committed overseas too. So like this is well known that the U.S. has committed war crimes in Afghanistan before. It's not out of the question that we would do it in this situation. But also like, even if let's say somebody in the U.S. was selling drugs and you were buying them willingly, nobody would say that you're allowed to kill your drug dealer either. That would still be a crime. So I don't see how even somebody in a boat trying to deliver drugs to wherever it is would still be like a legal strike. It's just something that is overreach.
Yeah, I mean, just to Dylan's point, quick too, not to keep piling on, but like, if you create a precedent, now let me just finish. If you create a precedent where anybody shipping drugs is potentially an enemy combatant, then by that logic, you should be carrying out lots and lots and lots of more strikes, right? I mean, anybody involved in the drug trade is a potential target, because therefore they represent the same level of threat as the people you killed in the Caribbean. And well, my issue with that is that more so if they're following through that as like the policy, which was I guess one interpretation of what a war on drugs might end up looking like, I would question why they're not following through with it. And then I would say, okay, this seems to convey to me that that's not the objective here. It's not about actually stopping drug dealers or viewing drugs as a hostile threat to the lives of Americans. It's about gunboat diplomacy and trying to force regime change.
Motivation you want to it, but what we're dealing with is what the rules of engagement, what the military is acting on. So the problem, the disconnect that
this is like saying you're only going to prosecute murders from like one group of people.
A motivation to people who are following orders that thus far have not been challenged and won.
I'm talking about the people who gave the orders.
Court of law. So until they're legal orders and they can legally blow those fucking boats away. Now, if that changes, I will be the first one to say, yep, they can't do that anymore. But right now, as of right now, it's perfectly legal for those boats to get blown to hell and back.
Well, I don't think it's the court decision that would decide whether it's legal or not. It would be illegal. Like there are things that have been done by people in positions of power that are illegal and never go to a courtroom. That doesn't mean those things were legal.
Yes, but
it just means that they weren't prosecuted.
This has been examined and has been determined thus far to be legal. And now, if that changes, then we'll take care of it.
Wait, Chris, you determined it was legal.
Okay, they have actually.
No, but who? I don't know.
I apologize. I put my notes away, so I have to pull it back up. But I don't even know what I did with them. Trump was using the not the War Powers Act, but a version of that. It expired. It was 90 days, I believe, is what he had for the first segment of it. That's expired. He's extended it again with the tacit blessing of Congress, which I believe is, I guess they can do that. I don't know. There's some question about that. And then they've got the Monroe Doctrine as well. So right now, again, right now, unless someone, so, okay, simple question. If it, is there any legal challenge to this that is gaining traction and or winning?
Well, that's what the congressional insight is going to determine based on the footage that they release, and then also whatever reporting came out from the decision that was being made.
Months. This has been going on for months. Has there been any congressional challenge to this or other challenge on legality that has gained traction and or won? If not,
determines your opinion on the matter,
and you can whine about it all you want. You can cope and seethe and cry all you want, but it's legal, and he can do it.
Well, I do want to throw out there that the president's party does control Congress, and the president has done things that were illegal that the Congress did not want to check him on, that the courts came out and then said, actually, this is unconstitutional. Actually, you cannot do this. And so I don't think that congressional action is necessarily the dictator of what is legal or not legal.
Well, then it'll go to the Supreme Court.
Dusty, go ahead. You're on the right, like more than these other three guys. They're all like left-leaning individuals. I would think more on the right. What?
He's in his libertarian field right now, though.
Yeah.
Right now, it's stuck here. I mean, I think that the claim that there's not legal action against it means it's legal and Grid knows that it's fucking retarded. By that logic, anything that's not okay. Grid, would you say that anything that's not prosecuted is legal?
Was Haditha not a war crime in Iraq because all those people were like let off the hook?
I don't know. Was it?
I mean, I'm asking if it's a ridiculous standard.
You're trying to
by your criteria, America can never commit a war crime because of the fucking Monroe Doctrine.
Regardless of that terrible code.
Just because we say this is our hemisphere and we can do whatever we want, it's ridiculous.
Terrible code. I want to know, Grid. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Your opinion on it is you can't hear me. Am I low?
Yeah, you're a little low. Well, he was talking too, so.
Yeah.
Is your opinion, Grid, just a byproduct of what Congress does or of legal action? Do you have an opinion of your own, or do you just?
I've already said my opinion.
That you like the taste of boots.
Yeah, my opinion is that I don't have a problem with them blowing the boats out of the water. I just don't.
What is your favorite flavor of boot?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What's yours? You might want to give me some references there. I don't know. I mean,
all right. Well, we're about at that time. Let's get some closing thoughts here. Shout outs to anything y'all got going on. We'll start with you, Castle. Any closing thoughts? Shout outs. What you got going on? Talk to people.
Cool. Yeah. So closing thoughts. I mean, I don't know. It sounded like outside of Grid and Tyler, and there was even maybe some agreement on some of the things that Dylan or Not Smoker was saying about, whether it's really drug related or not. It sounds like we at least got closer to acknowledging the truth of the motives behind why we're doing these things. It doesn't sound like at the end we got to agreement about whether legality matters or not. But I think just to stand on principle, I think that should matter. And I think at the end of the day that whether or not we're successful in using our show of force to encourage or force change in Venezuela, there's a long road ahead that we may not be as well prepared for, and we have to accept and acknowledge that. I think Maduro is a bad actor at the end of the day, but I think that at the same time we have to be careful about how much time and resources that we spend in it, because America right now also should be focused on more than Venezuela and what they're doing. And so I think the president would be better served and better advised to focus on economic issues at home rather than trying to stop every drug runner coming into the international waters off the coast of Venezuela. So at the end of the day, I think if the president wants to, he certainly can get us involved in this and spend trillions or billions of dollars more and not focusing on us, or he can go ahead with it and see that it's going to be unpopular as an issue here at home if we get involved militarily, and it may not even work out in Venezuela. So I think just the cost benefit of this all is not worth it, in my opinion.
All right.
And if you want to follow me, CastleGuard YT at Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, check him out, everybody. Check him out. Mr. Burns.
So I think that the United States should be engaging in a policy of cooperation with nation states if we want to fight drugs, unless we want to put our troops on the ground and specifically go in there and remove their governments, whether it be Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela. And the American, not only do I not think that's a good idea, but the American public are not signed on to it. The American public do not support it. And so I think this would be doomed to fail by whatever next administration would come in, undo this operation, then have it be nothing more than another failed American project and at a big price tag on it. Because the next administration would either end it by pulling out of it and trashing it in order to get into power in the first place, or they would continue with the failed project and just make it a bigger sunk cost. So I don't think that we should be going in there and removing them with force. I don't think that strikes can guarantee an outcome. And with so many of those outcomes being lawless hellscape with gangs controlling this part of the country and gangs controlling that part of the country, that doesn't make much sense for me either. The only scenarios I can think of is if there is a unending avalanche of violence that makes it so that there's not really much of a choice for the international community to do something but act like they should in Sudan, like they should in other situations where the humanitarian catastrophe continues to spiral, or they take a revanchist stance where, due to the international pressure on Maduro and due to the economic struggles, he decides we're going to invade Guyana in order to rebring national sentiment, try to bring back support for me, something like that. Those are the only two scenarios where I could see the United States being able to intervene militarily and have both international support to help stabilize the situation afterwards, or the domestic bottom-up support in Venezuela and at home to make it so that we wouldn't have to manage the whole situation ourselves.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, go check out his new documentary. It's really good. He does good work. It was really cool seeing on the ground action. Some people just talk about things. Dylan actually knows and bees about things. That's a really cool thing. Mr. Dusty, thanks for joining us for your first time here. I'm glad you were able to come join one of my panels. I was real happy to get you here. Hope you enjoyed it. Any closing thoughts?
Thank you for having me, and I hope to come again. Pause. My name's Taylor. My channel is The Powder Dusty on YouTube. I think that the official, as far as the information that we have goes, the reason we state for meddling with boats outside of Venezuela is insufficient. Like I said at the beginning, I think we should end the war on drugs entirely. And so I think that's unjustified entirely. As far as, and I think that everybody else on the panel agrees that that's not a sufficient justification for what we're doing, which is why we spent the whole discussion looking at other reasons why we could speculate that they're doing it. It's really hard to say if those other speculative reasons are justified because we don't know what they are. But from what we do have, I just don't see how anybody could support just blowing up random ass boats and then going, well, they're drugs.
All right. Thank you so much. And where can they find you?
Powder Dusty on YouTube.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Mr. Non-Smoker.
All right. Twitch.tv/non_smoker. Catch the struggle session every 2 weeks out on WUSB Stony Brook, WUSB.FM. So I'm completely in the camp of non-interventionism once again. It's nice to know I'm not totally alone. I think the one thing that has come out of this discussion that should be clear to any impartial observer is that drugs have very little to do with this. It's clearly part of a multi-decades long approach towards Venezuela in which we've tried to push regime change and failed. I oppose regime change. I oppose arbitrarily removing governments we don't like and expecting it to just work out. It almost never does, whether that be through military intervention directly, like invading, or targeted strikes, as was suggested before, or economic means like sanctions, which kill innocent fucking people, or gunboat diplomacy. Any of those things, I'm completely against it because it almost never works. It hurts the people there and it makes the world at large angrier at us, trust us less. It weakens America. It's bad for Americans. far worse than shipping drugs into this country. I find it absurd the notion that we would send troops into Venezuela who might go there, suffer PTSD, ironically enough, get addicted to fucking drugs, come home, and then not be sufficiently taken care of by the federal government. And there are people who will still continue to advocate for an intervention after that. The whole thing is really disgusting. I'm opposed to it 100%, and I think you should be too. May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Thank you so much. And Grid, last but not least.
Yeah. We just need to sink some more boats.
Where can they find you?
That was actually the entire subject of tonight. I mean, we had to talk about a lot more things because honestly, there's just no getting around. We just need to sink more boats. We went down an entire
with great ones.
Hope, a lot of seething. We did agree with Dylan on a lot of the points that he made about why it was probably not worthwhile to invade or get into an Afghanistan type situation. Although he thinks it'll work, I don't. I don't want us to get into that sort of deal with any other country. I don't think we've not had a good track record with regime changes over the past 70 fucking years that we've been trying it. You can find me at An Unreasonable Man, and I just I say important things and do important things sometimes.
And you have a show tomorrow, don't you?
I do have a show tomorrow. I do.
Where can we find your boat at so that we can
my boat?
make sure it's taking your
my
boat?
boat's my driveway. My boat's my driveway.
Oh.
I know exactly.
You hear that, Trump?
Is it a cigar boat? Cigar boat by chance?
It is not a cigarette.
Doesn't matter. It's full of drugs and illegals.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're on there, it's certainly full of illegals.
Well, I know.
I am in the boat. Wink, wink.
I'm going to end out, raid out. We're going to raid Hot and Streamy. She's one of the homies. Thank y'all so much. And thank y'all for all being here. I appreciate it. I look forward to hitting y'all up soon for something. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
All right,
Have a
thank
good
you
day.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Better.
Wow. Wowza. Wowza was owza. How's everybody doing?